Just rushing in. Wow, that was something. I just made it. Oh, I've been out there seeking and serving. So many people, so much to do. It's a lot. Okay, I'm ready. Here I am. Hello, Church of the Incarnation. I'm Deacon Denise LaVetty, and I'm here tonight to talk about, I'm really here, I'm really ready to talk about our baptismal vow, the fourth baptismal vow, which is, will you seek and serve Christ in all persons, loving your neighbor as yourself? So sometimes, like today, I don't even have to seek. There's the family always needing something, friends need to talk, need to spend time. Oh, my cousin's asking for a loan again, and that nephew with the problems, need to find time to call him. And then there's that guy down by Dunkin' Donuts with the cup, and my neighbor has a broken hip, and that coworker asked me to cover for them again. And the homeless guy seems to need some water. It's a lot. And now I'm supposed to seek out more, all persons. Did I sign up for this? In fact, I did. Even though I was baptized as an infant and my godparents took the baptismal vows for me, I was confirmed as a young adult after much instruction. So yes, I did, in fact, knowingly sign up for this. Seeking and serving Christ in all people may seem like a simple concept. And there's many places in the New Testament that demonstrate this. The story of the Good Samaritan is a good example. But I like Matthew 25, verses 35 to 40, because it has a lot of explicit examples. So here it is, Matthew 25, verses 35 to 40. Jesus says, "For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you took care of me. I was in prison and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly, I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me." Will you seek and serve Christ in all persons, loving your neighbor as yourself? The true spirit of this vow is humbling. It leaves no room for any presumption that anyone is unworthy of love. No room to presume we who have been privileged to have been in circumstances that led us to baptism are any more worthy of love than any other. In fact, what the baptized are more worthy of is the call to love one another. And this is our charge, our very clear directive. But it's a tough one, isn't it? Now, the key words, the action words, are seek and serve. But the word that's most problematic of all is all. Seek. Well, sometimes we might very purposefully seek. So when we do some volunteer work, when we put ourselves in situations that may have serving opportunities, but proactively seeking is just one way. The other way to seek is to merely be mindful, to acknowledge others, to look, to regard, to wonder, to sometimes simply get out of our own way so we can see the other. Serve. Well, everyone can't always be everyone's servant, right? That's fortunately not what this means. But treating others with respect, the respect that we would want, being mindful of others' needs and concerns, being present to others. These are all also ways of serving. Well, then that word all. Seek and serve Christ in all people, all, no exceptions. If you're like me, it's relatively easy to seek and serve Christ in all people, when all people means people who look like me, live like me, love like me, vote like me, pray like me. But this vow doesn't say all that. It just says all. So rather, we're asked to promise to seek and serve Christ in our fellow sinners. We're to seek and serve Christ in those whose behavior concerns or irritates us, makes us uncomfortable. We're to seek and serve Christ in those whose political attitudes appear repugnant, even dangerous to us. We're to seek and serve Christ in those who are racist, bigoted, prudish, not so prudish, loud and annoying, liars, cheaters, self-centered people, and in those who would never seek to serve in Christ, seek and serve Christ in us. We promise to do this not to affirm bad behavior, but because it's only with the cleansing love of God that evil is overcome. And it's only with the cleansing love of God that we can find a way to overcome our own intolerance. So let's go back to that concept of seek and serve all people and the difficulty of that. We're all made in God's image, and that's much more than a physical image. We all have godliness within us. Sure, some will take some digging, but it's there, it's in there. So how do we get there? One way that works for me is to try to see the face of God in others, whether it's some physical face of God or an essence of God. To seek and serve Christ in all persons, we need to seek to see Christ in all persons. So I devised this exercise a few years ago, and I'd like to take us through it. And you'll need a paper and pen, okay, or pencil. Those old-fashioned tools. Remember paper and pencil we used to use all the time? Hopefully you still have that around. So to prepare, to get started, take your paper and just draw a circle in the center of the paper, not too large, because we're going to be using some of the space around it. Okay, so just a circle in the center of the paper. Okay, and so now I'd like to just kind of take a couple of deep breaths and just get a little centered for the exercise. Okay. Now I'd like you to visualize just one person or two people who are the closest in the world to you, who you love the most. Write their names in the circle. Okay. And no one's going to be asked to share, so please be as open with yourself as you can. If you don't want to write names, you can put initials or some symbol that would indicate that person to you. But put that in the center of that circle that you drew on the paper. Now, you wrote their names there or some symbol that is meaningful to you that makes you think of them. I'd like you to focus in on them each individually. Just picture them, imagine them. And then imagine the face of God in them. And then love them through that. And now I'll ask you to draw another circle, kind of circling the first circle, concentric circles, right? Okay. And in this one, I'd like you to think of one or two people in your life that are just kind of outside this realm. Okay. Someone, the realm of those closest to you, just outside of that. A good friend, a neighbor, a coworker, maybe somebody from church. Okay, draw this other circle around that first circle, encircling it, and write their names there. Write their names on that circle. Now focus in on them each individually. Picture them and imagine the face of God in them and love them through that. And now, if you will, mine's getting a little sloppy. Draw another circle outside all of those. Okay. And now think of one or two people or types of people who you find bothersome or slightly annoying at work, in your building, someone you frequently encounter on the street, even someone in church. And put their names or something indicating them in this outside circle. Focus in on them each individually and imagine the face of God in them and see how you might love them through that. And so now, draw another circle. Hopefully you still have room outside of everything. One more circle, okay? And in there, I'd like you to indicate one or two people or groups of people or types of people, whether you know them personally or not, who you find threatening, who you might be afraid of, physically afraid of, or emotionally afraid of. And put their names and descriptions in that outside circle. Focus in on them each individually and imagine the face of God in them. And remember that God loves them and see how you might love them through that. See how it gets more challenging. Amen. Will you seek and serve Christ in all people, loving your neighbor as yourself? Now we could take that exercise further and reach it out to somebody like terrorists, and maybe you went there and beyond. But that's for another time. That's another session. That's another almost a whole other topic, right? So let's just leave that thought there. And so the second part of this vow is loving your neighbor as yourself. Now, I always find this difficult because I sort of think of love of self as a little contradictory to loving your neighbor, because loving yourself seems, well, it seems selfish. But loving oneself does not mean being self-indulgent, excessive, or narcissistic. Loving oneself can simply mean being in touch with the godliness, that face of God that's in ourselves. Loving your neighbor as yourself is a good example of what the love we give should look like. It can simply mean the ability to value ourselves, our lives, to forgive ourselves, to cherish the life we've been given. What you would want for yourself: respect, care, dignity, forgiveness, understanding. That's what's expected. That's what we're to give. That's what we're to serve to others. So, how do we deal with the difficulty of this vow? Well, the absolute beauty of the baptismal covenant is the answer we give to all the questions. In this case, will you seek and serve Christ in all persons, loving your neighbor as yourself? What we humbly answer is, I will, with God's help. I will, with God's help. With God's help assures us that we're not in this alone. It's a promise that however we stumble in our attempts to seek Christ in everyone, to see that face of God in everyone, God is with us. God is with us on this journey with every challenge to our ability to love. So we need to remember to be still and hear God's voice telling us it's okay, telling us to just keep trying, to just keep leading with love. And that's all I have for you tonight. I will offer you some reflection questions to talk about. And I'm going to, what am I going to do? Okay, maybe I'm not going to do that. I was going to do attempt a screen share, and perhaps I still will. So one reflection question that that I have for you is, how did that face of God exercise feel? How did it feel? How did you feel when you were going through that? And I know, we probably went a little faster than I like to, okay? But for purposes of tonight, I wanted to at least just get you through all that. So how did the face of God exercise feel? That's one question. And let's see. Okay. Look at that. I think I've done it. I think I've accomplished the screen share. Okay. How did the face of God exercise feel? And what about when we went to the outer circle people, as we got wider and wider away from those we hold most dear? What aspect of that was most difficult for you? So that's one reflection question that you might want to tackle. Another one is, what are ways you could work into your life to be present to others, to seek and to serve? what might be holding you back from doing these things. So what are ways you could do in your life, ways you can work into your life to be present to others, to seek and to serve? And maybe think about some real tangible things, like not big picture, but maybe actual small things. And what might be holding you back from doing these things? And then finally, in what ways might you give yourself a break? How might you forgive, accept, and love yourself? Because we do fail at this, don't we? So, in what ways might you give yourself a break? How might you forgive, accept, and love yourself? So, those are the reflection questions that I'm suggesting. And I wish you a wonderful rest of your session. And I hope you've enjoyed this. And I'd love to continue the conversation at any time. So for now, have a great night, and I'll see you in church. Bye.